Hey everybody, hope you're doing well today. So in this video, I'm really excited to present to you the muted brass from Orchestral Tools. And this is the second expansion, or the expansion B to the Berlin Brass series. And it's all about muted brass. So it covers a lot of ground actually, especially in the classical and film scoring territory. Not so much for jazz, but perhaps those will come in a separate expansion in the future, who knows. But in regards to, classical stuff and just general mutes, it's very comprehensive. So what I thought I'd do is I would go through each of these instruments. Maybe I'll skip a couple that are repetitive, but I'll just explore each of the articulations in these folders and kind of talk about, the sound and the function and how it works out. So it comes with multi-articulations, single articulations, and then you also get time machine patches, which are pretty cool as well. We'll skip that for this video because I just wanted to talk more about the the sound and the quality of the library. So for the let's just start with the horn one stop legato. So it's not a ridiculous amount of articulations, which is good because Orchestral Tools usually only records what is practical and what's very common for the instrument. So let's just hear what horn one sounds like. So you can even hear that tail until the very last second, and then the recording stops. So this is great in a especially a soloistic environment. If you have one of these instruments just playing a solo line, at the very end, you won't hear a sudden cut off. You actually hear the recording continue on. You'll actually hear the telex scoring stage that the instrument's recorded in, which is awesome. Now, the max range they recorded here is, or that they've included, is up to a G4. But if you'd like to, you can actually click on this function right here, the G4, and extend it all the way up to a D5. So let's see what that sounds like. So this is basically heading into trumpet territory already, but the tone of a stopped horn is quite unique. So if you really wanted, a horn to go that high, you could do it. But Orchestral Tools basically did what they thought was practical and, what is the most useful and the most common. In the lower range, so the lowest they have here is a D, but if we extend it even more, so you really hear that brassiness in there, and that definitely sounds realistic. Definitely less common though. So let's quickly talk about the legato sampling. So legato is beautiful. You can hear really those transitions. They all sound perfectly natural, and it's really hard to tell that it's a sample library, because the transitions themselves are just so natural and they don't really jut out when you play a different note. They just slide in seamlessly between the notes. And what's great is that this is adaptive legato that the Orchestral Tools brought to the table. So essentially, depending on what speed you're playing determines how quick the legato transitions are. So if you're playing more slowly, then you hear that it takes a longer time from the C to get to the G, which is perfectly natural. But if you're playing quicker, then you hear that transition is quite quick. So you don't hear as much of a glide from the C to the G. And this is great for playing runs, for example, because you can get pretty realistic sounding runs as the legato transition shorten. And so, that's why these patches are great for both lyrical playing and also fast playing. And of course, the quality of the sound. I can't fault because As with all Orchestral Tools products, I think the sound is just really pristine and really, really nice. This also comes with immediate sustains and soft sustains, so maybe let's check out the immediate ones. So this is essentially just polyphonic playing, so you can play multiple notes at once. And sometimes the even just playing the sustain patch sounds pretty good as well, even without legato. Right? You do miss that little bit of a glide between the notes, but you know, it's passable, so it still works really well. By the way, my system just clicked there. You saw that. I just overloaded a bit. That's not because of the library. It's just due to my CPU. Apologize for that. And let's do some staccatissimo here. See what this sounds like. Sounds really cool. All right, nice and short and biting. Let's talk about the riccatos just a little bit. Just a really, really nice release and tail. I think the repetitions ones are really impressive because it gives a really realistic flair, especially when you want these kinds of repetitions. Compared to if you're just playing, you know, a regular staccatissimo patch, like 9 times, if they record the repetitions, it just sounds a lot more realistic. Here you can have the option to slow down the repetition if you want to. Auto tumble. Right, so it just slows it down completely, and then you can do it twice the speed, which sounds really cool as well. But keeping it on the regular one, on 1 is the most realistic, and if you lock it to the host, the patch will follow your BPM of your project. Cool. And then we have triplets repetitions as well. Then let's check out some crescendos. And of course, the reason for recording these crescendos is because that, you know, we can simulate crescendos using sustains patches by, you know, starting the mod wheel down at the very bottom and rolling up to the top. But it's always more realistic to have the musician actually perform these dynamic changes themselves. And a forte piano obviously is when they play a loud note followed by a decrease in volume. And I was just holding the keys there, and then they just naturally stopped playing, which is great. Horn 2 is very similar. Again, if you take a look here, the articulations are very, how do I say it? Very, very consistent. So for all these instruments, actually, you'll have quite a lot of the same, articulations. So let's, just to note, the difference between Horn 2 and Horn 1 is really just a bit of the tonality of it. Horn 2 is a little brighter. It contains a little bit less low end, I think. So it feels to me like Horn 2 would cut through the mix a little bit better, especially if it's really busy. Horn 1 has a more full sound and just slightly richer in tone to me personally. So I feel it would fit a soloistic environment very, very well, especially if you want it to take the whole center stage and to fill in the whole frequency spectrum really, really well. It can do that for you. The horn ensemble obviously is just multiple horns playing together, and it has these articulations as well. So let me just demonstrate the legato a little bit and see what that sounds like. Again, the clicks and pops from my CPU. Sorry about that. What's really cool about these sustains is that as you hold the note, you can hear there's little inconsistencies in the sound, which proves that, you know, they're actually humans playing it, because humans can't hold a sound perfectly. They can't make the same sound consistently for an extended period of time. It just won't happen. There's human variances in the sounds we make, right? So if you're holding a long note, maybe your buzzing speed will slow down a little bit, maybe it'll speed up, maybe your tuning will adjust slightly. All these little nuances will make it seem more realistic, and I really appreciate when sample libraries include these types of things. Okay, so let's move on to the trumpets now. So we have different mutes here. We have the straight mute, we have the Harmon mute, stem half in, and with the stem fully in. So let's just run through the sound of each one a little bit. Let's talk about the legato first. This is for the straight mute, so. That's just a gorgeous tail. So it's just playing kind of staccato there, and it's actually not bad. But obviously if you want a little more of an, staccato or staccatissimo, go with the staccatissimo patch. Again, the legato scripting is excellent. You can do so much with it because it's adaptive. And so it follows your playing speed again, like what we mentioned before. And then the Harmon stem half in. This one isn't as loud because perhaps the Harmon mute makes everything just a little bit softer, and so it's not practical for them to really go into the FF, fortissimo ranges for this Harmon mute. The sound quality still can't be faulted. It just really sounds very pristine and very clean. And this is the complete stemming. I can imagine playing actually some pretty cool solo brass lines, especially some jazz lines with this. And that's all due to the legato scripting. As you play faster, the legato speeds up. But it's all true legato, it's all recorded, so big props to OT for this. And again, all the articulations are consistent throughout the instruments. Trumpet ensemble, we already can basically guess what that's like. Now, regarding the trombones, you'll actually notice here in the articulation list that it actually lacks legato. And when I asked Orchestral Tools about this, they basically told me that legato for muted trombones isn't as common. And so, again, they just wanted to focus on the articulations that are more common in these mute playing. So they recorded sustains. Really, really nice sound. Let's hear what the soft attack sound like. So you still get a nice brassy sound near the end there, but the attack's a little bit softer. Staccatissimo sounds like this. So there's the brassiness we're looking for. Awesome. Then we have some Mercado, which we talked about. Let's hear the repetitions actually a little bit. So just really, really consistent, and just it sounds really, really nice. Let's quickly hear the Trombone 2 straight mute. beautiful sound. And again, there's tiny variances in trombone for 1 versus 2, but it's really the instruments that they provide, the wealth of articulations, and just the sound quality that really sells this library. And finally, the bass trombone is really, really nice as well. So it's just a little bit lower. And it can go all the way down. And there's the lowest A on the keyboard. So I can imagine this being really good for some brass work, especially for some sinister stuff. That could really, really work well. Let me just quickly talk about the multis for a second. So let me just drag one in. So what's really cool about the multi-patch is that you can add legato to basically any articulation that you want, short or long. Obviously, it's going to be more effective and noticeable on the longer articulations, but you can do it to anything. So just using the sustains patch here, let's say I wanted to use a marcato long. So all I have to do is click on the name of it, go up to this little button here with the slur icon. I can click on that. Now the legato has been activated for the marcato. So if I click on, that little line there, that activates this articulation. Right? So basically you'll get that legato transition, and then on the last sample, it'll activate the long sample for the marcato, which will sound really cool. And if we didn't do that, if we had the legato off, then it just sounds like, so it sounds like the samples overlapping, I should say. So let's say I wanted to put legato on for a crescendo, I could do that as well. That's really cool. So basically for the crescendo, the sample starts really, really soft, but if I change notes in the middle of the crescendo, that new sample will take on the dynamic from the previous one, right? So if the sample starts PP, I just played an A right after that, and the A takes on the dynamic that the F just left off of. So it started PP, it went to about MF, the A started on the MF and went all the way to an F, which is really, really nice. Something like that. It's pretty cool. So that's the standout feature about these multi-patches, I think. Aside from the obvious fact that you can have access to every single articulation, just in one patch, which is really nice. So you can save on your number of tracks in your project and basically use key switches or however else you like to control your articulations. Capsule is a very nice way to actually do that in Orchestral Tools libraries. But that's for another video. So thanks so much for watching, guys. That's basically it. I hope you enjoyed this video and kind of a walkthrough of these different patches. But you can see for yourself that the sound quality that Orchestral Tools is known for stands up in this library and basically every library that they create. It's just really, really clean, really pristine. And the Teldec scoring stage that they record everything in is just a really great sounding hall. And so it's not too short, the reverb tail, but it's also not too long. And it makes your mixing pretty easy if you use only Orchestral Tools libraries. Because you won't have to place them in their own space. They're already recorded in the space. That just sounds really, really nice. So yeah, I really appreciate you watching, guys. If you're scoring any type of work that might require some mute stuff, definitely give this one some consideration. But until next time, this has been Chris. Great to see you in this video, and I will see you in the next one. Have a good day, guys. Bye.